Okay, so let's start. Hello, everyone. And this week, Parshat Toldot, our goal is going to be, can you explain the words mother of Jacob and Esau? So you're saying, what do you mean? It's pretty obvious. We know English. We know what that means. And we see the picture there of, I think it's easy to tell who the artist thought was Jacob and who the artist thought was Esau. But no, the question is, why do those words appear in a verse? And the appearance of those words is very problematic. And so, in order to understand why it's very problematic, let's see that verse.
Yeah, let's look at the verse. Yeah.
Okay, do you see now the
slide? First thing I notice is Jacob's name came first.
Right. Okay. So
and that was not the order of birth.
Exactly. That was not the order. And this appears, these three words, and I'm giving you a hint here, redundant, appear at the end of the story of the whole drama of of deceiving Isaac and getting the blessing that was intended for Esau. So let's see the actual verses, the background. The background is we have an entire chapter devoted to tell us how Rebecca devised a plan to trick her husband, to give Jacob the blessing instead of Esau, because she thought he deserved it. And then Jacob reluctantly went along with it. He argued a little bit. He said, but my father will discover that I am not hairy like my brother. And she said, no, but we can get over that obstacle because I can dress you up. And then he got the blessing. And even Yitzchak was a little bit suspicious of what's going on, but nevertheless gave him the blessing.
Yes.
And then Esau comes home and he discovered the ruse, and he was livid with anger and said to himself, the Torah says to himself, one day I'll kill him. One day meaning after my father will die. So even when, and we'll talk about that. What is this? Is it just bluffing or just a sign of anger, or did you really want to kill? And then Rebecca advised Jacob to flee to Haran. And at that point comes this verse. So then she tells Yaakov, your brother is planning to kill you. You need to flee. And why don't you go to my brother Laban up in Haran? And then she tells Isaac, she doesn't tell him the real reason. She just tells him, I don't want Jacob marrying these Canaanite girls. It will make me miserable. So now Yitzchak is aware that Jacob needs to go away too. And at that point in the story, the Torah tells us. So this is the end of the story. It's really the end of the drama. וישלח יצחק את יעקב, וילך פדנה ארם, אל לבן בן בתואל הארמי, אחי רבקה, אם יעקב ועשיו. And what does that mean in English? Then Isaac sent Jacob off, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, mother of Jacob and Esau. So, mother of Jacob and Esau, we know that. We talked about it for the last 50 verses. Completely redundant. It is completely unnecessary to tell us this fact. Now, let's go back to the verse. I understand why they're telling me who Laban is, because we haven't heard about Laban for the last few chapters. Now, we do know, like if you go back to the previous parsha, we do know who Laban is. Why? Why do we know who Laban is from Chaye Sarah?
Yeah.
Why? Why do we know? Like, where was he first introduced in the Torah? Laban.
Brother of Rebecca.
Right. When they went to, when Abraham's servant, or the Midrash says Eliezer, when he went there to find the woman, the lady and so there, of course, he met Rebecca at the well, but then went to her house and met her brother Laban. Okay, but that was a few chapters ago, so that I can understand very well. why the Torah would remind us. Oh, you know who Laban is? You might have forgotten because we haven't talked about him for several chapters. Okay, he's the son of Bethuel the Aramean, and he is the brother of Rebekah. Okay, that's perfectly understandable. But why mother of Jacob and Esau? What we know that we've been talking about that for the last 50 verses. What is the point of adding those three words, Em, Yaakov, Esau? And the Torah doesn't use words unnecessarily, and so there must be something going on here.
Correct.
Because I think it's because she loved them both, but she loved them in different ways. And maybe she loved one more than the other, but she was the mother of both and loved them in her own way.
I like that explanation. That's a great explanation. And we're going to get to that because it's part of the story that I'm going to tell at the end of our class today that is related to my father, Alav Shalom. And it was his yahrzeit this week. And so I have a story for you about this. And that is one of the explanations that's going to come up in our story. So Joan already had an explanation for us, but guess who doesn't have an explanation? Watch this. What does Rashi say? Eini yodea ma melamdenu.
What does Rashi say?
Wow.
I don't know.
How
what-
often does he? What this teaches us?
It's very rare that Rashi
I'm
will
going to
tell.
say.
Will say this kind of statement. So he is perplexed, like all of us, but he's so perplexed, and he thinks this is so pilei ploim, and can't come up with a sufficient explanation that he says, Eini yodea ma melamdenu. And first of all, you see here his modesty, because he could have just left it blank. He doesn't give a perush on every single word in the Torah, or every single verse. So he could have just glossed over this and not written anything. But that would be in her book. My grand-aunt Nechama says that would be a gnevat da'at. That would be a deception, like pulling a fast one on us, trying to kind of get away with it and say, look, I don't know what the explanation is, but I don't want anybody else to know that I don't know. So I'm just gonna, no, he says, I know there's difficulty here. It's very strange that the Torah would tell us now at the end of the story, this fact, which we've been knowing, we knew this and we've been talking about this for the last chapter and a half. Yet I can't come up with a sufficient explanation. So I'm just gonna tell you that I don't know. I don't know. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. So even in his modesty, he's teaching us a very important principle, that there's nothing to be embarrassed about saying, I don't know. The great Rashi, right? The great Rashi is telling us, yeah, you don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Or maybe he just left out a word. I don't want to know what this teaches us.
I think he would want to know. I think he.
But it's about a mother's love, and it's a hard thing to grasp that a mother has different feelings about her children.
Right. So I think your the explanation that you raised is intriguing. So on one hand, it's convincing to think of her as someone who loved both of them, but on the other hand, the dry facts of the story, how she deceives her husband, how she deceives her other son, those show us that she's not equally the mother of both of them. And so is the Torah now trying to shed some positive light on her, realizing that what she did was so negative? Or let's go back to the so let's focus on why at this particular moment the Torah says Em Yaakov Esau. Does it have to do with the telling him to go flee to Haran because his brother has been heard to say that he's going to kill him? He's going to wait till his father dies. And let's, if we look at the verses, I want to share with you the sequence of the verses, because that could be a key way. And I want to ask you, before we look at different explanations, I want to ask, what do you think could be, if we look at where this word appears? Okay, so now you see the verses. 42. Rebecca was told the words of Esau.
Very blurred.
Very blurred. I guess
Very blurred. Okay, let's
Whoa.
fix it.
our bandwidth is probably something.
Yeah. Do you see it better now?
No.
It wasn't,
No.
and it got back to where it was, blurred afterwards. It's readable though.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can read it.
So Rebecca was told that her elder son Esau has said this intention of killing Jacob, and she calls him and she says, "Behold, your brother Esau regrets his relationship to you and wishes to kill you. So now, my son, hearken to my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban. You shall dwell with him for a few days." Then she comes, verse 46. She comes to her husband Isaac. "I am disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Chet. I don't want Jacob to marry one of these daughters. So what kind of life is this for me if he goes and marries her?" And then the next chapter continues. Yitzchak calls Jacob to him, blesses him, and says, "Don't take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Go to Padan Aram, flee. Go get yourself a wife from there." And at that point, in verse 5, is our difficult verse, our perplexing verse. "And Isaac sent Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau." Yaakov Esau. So does this, adding this fact here, or saying this redundant fact here, have anything to do with sending him away? What do you think? Is there something about
It
sending him?
also might have to do with the fact that Rebecca is a sneaky woman, and she comes from a sneaky family.
That's, yeah.
And then the sneaky family comes into it later on.
I
Okay.
have to agree with that. I think it's sort of trying to redeem Rebecca because she doesn't come from a good neighborhood. They're not nice people.
Is it possible, Shamai, that this is an admonition to her that she hasn't been acting as if she were the mother of Jacob and Esau? So maybe it's a criticism of her.
Oh, okay, very good. So I think that's very interesting reading. So Aaron is suggesting to us, this is the Torah's way. The Torah it's not the style of the Torah to come outright and criticize our forefathers, or even the heroes, any heroes in the stories, unless they're very evil. But there's always hints. It's always subtleties. And Aaron is suggesting the Torah is using a subtlety here to give criticism over her actions. She should have been acting as Yaakov Esau, and she didn't. So I like all of these suggestions that you've offered. And now I would like to continue and see what some of our commentators, because you know that once Rashi says that I don't know what this teaches us, what's going to happen? Every other commentator who came after him is going to try and show, Rashi couldn't, but hey, I can.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, exactly. And you know what? Maybe Rashi, as a pedagogue, that's why he wrote it. He didn't, he saw the difficulty. He thought of possible explanations, wasn't satisfied, but then decided, let me challenge all future commentators to this very day, to us now reading this, and let me challenge them. And by saying these words, right, which student doesn't want to outsmart his teacher, right? It's a great way to get students involved and excited about learning any material. So maybe this is Rashi the pedagogue.
Right.
Okay, so let's see what future or later commentators said. Rabbi Ovadia
Bartanura.
from Italy, his explanation is as follows. Do you see the slide, Rabbi Ovadia Bartanura?
Yes.
Yes. It explains why she sent him to Laban, for he is a relative to both. And Jacob can share with Laban all the quarrels between himself and his brother, since it is dishonorable to share this with strangers. So an interesting concept that you don't do your dirty laundry in public, right? So he can commiserate with Laban and tell him all his problems because he's part of the mishpucha. Doesn't have to be worried, because it's an embarrassment. My brother wants to kill me. Well, why does he want to kill you? Well, I stole the blessings from him. It could be a big busha if you're going to a stranger's house. But so Ratanua says, mother of Jacob and Esau is basically telling us she wants it to remain in the family, and that's why she's sending him to Laban. Okay, I don't find that particularly convincing. Let's move on. Here's a picture of one of the great scholars of the 19th century, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, the Rosh Yeshiva of Volozhin. And so he's become known as the Netziv from Volozhin. And one of his chidushim was that in a time where learning Talmud was considered the highest form of Talmud Torah, and many Gdolim were only focused on Talmud, he revived the study of Tanakh, of Torah. He said that's no less important. And he put his money where his mouth is, and he wrote a whole commentary on the Torah. And his commentary,
Wonderful.
Yeah, so he says as follows: this is why Isaac and Esau did not feel that Jacob has escaped from Esau, because Laban is the brother of the mother of Esau. Okay, so he says the words Em Yaakov Esau are a way to tell us, and Isaac and Esau won't feel that Esau is escaping a threat of violence. They'll just think, we sent him away to be with our mishpacha, across the border, and to, get married, but just be with our extended family. So it's a kind of way to hide everything that's going on, the undercurrents, the threats, the violence, the disharmony, the dysfunctional family here. It's a way to hide all that and outwardly to show the world, he's just going to visit mishpucha. That's all. Okay, so that's how he explains these words. Now I want to move forward, and now we're getting to along the way of more along the commentary of Joan. This is the rabbi who lived in Poland and Italy and Prague in the early 17th century, and he wrote a book called Seidal HaDerech. His name was Issachar Ber Eilenberg, and it's a super commentary on Rashi. So Rashi had several people who came out later after him who wrote entire books just to explain Rashi. And so, of course, this is a very important verse to try to explain why, what was troubling Rashi, and can we come up with an explanation, even though Rashi told us he doesn't know what it teaches us. So Tzedar HaDerech, or Rabbi Eilenberg, says the words Em Yaakov Esau are to teach us that by sending him off, she is not acting solely as Jacob's mother, but rather as Esau's mother too, because by preventing Esau from killing his brother. Beforehand, she was only Jacob's mother when she deceived Isaac but now she's acting as mother of Jacob and Esau. In what sense? In the sense that she's not just protecting Jacob, she's also protecting Esau from his instincts, from his violent instincts. What mother wants her son to be a murderer? Of course not. This is the worst thing in the world. So it's not only that she cares about Jacob, she cares about her son not becoming a criminal, not committing the most heinous crime. And so it's a beautiful explanation. It's along the lines of what some of you guys have said, that when she sends Jacob away, it's as mother of Esau and Yaakov. Both of them. She's protecting Jacob, but at the same time, and no less important, protecting her other son, Esau, so that he doesn't do what at least it was rumored, or because remember, it says that it was told to her that he said those threats, right? So whether it's true that he said it, whether it's just a rumor, whether he was just bluffing, it doesn't matter to her. She's worried. She doesn't want it to happen, and so she's sending Jacob away. Okay, and there's an implied criticism. So this even incorporates Aaron's explanation. Beforehand, up until now in the story, you, Rebecca, were the mother of just one of these kids because you totally favored him and even, went did somersaults to deceive everybody else. But now, okay, at least in the final act of the story, you're now coming back to what your role should be and the mother of both of your children, and you're doing the right thing for both of them. I think it's a beautiful explanation of Rabbi Eilenberg.
It is.
And
It is.
now I told you I promised you a story. So here's Mother. Do you want to tell the story, or should I tell it? Okay. So you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll tell the story. So my sister was studying in Beis Yaakov. Beis Yaakov is a worldwide movement of girls' schools. And they teach Torah, they teach also math and science, and but they emphasize orthodoxy and staying religious. There's usually, as you see in the picture, there's usually uniforms. Girls have to wear uniforms.
We lost you.
Okay. Let me repeat. Beis Yaakov. I'm trying to explain what is Beis Yaakov. It's a worldwide movement. You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all over the world, not just the United States. There's one in Baltimore, there's one in New York, and there's a couple in Israel. Many schools in Israel. It's girls' schools. It's only girls. You see dressed modestly, uniform dresses. And so you can imagine the emphasis there is on the traditional way of teaching Torah. So my sister went there to the Beis Yaakov in Beersheba. And here's the story of what happened when the teacher in her class taught this verse. So the teacher got to our verse, Em Yaakov Esav, and she showed the girls the Rashi and said, look, bringing back the Rashi, look how Rashi modest is. When he doesn't know something, he tells us he doesn't know, and this is a lesson for all of us. So my sister went home and talked with my father, Alav Shalom, about this. And my father told her a story about a certain boy. There was a certain boy who once was in a class and heard about this Rashi, and he raised his hand and said to the teacher, I have an explanation. And the teacher said, yeah, what's your explanation? And he said the explanation that Joan basically said to us today, she's still the mother of Jacob and Esau. She still loves both of them. The Torah wants to emphasize that.
You're breaking up.
No.
Yeah, so she's still the mother. So the story is my father is telling my sister about that there was a boy in his class when he studied this who gave this explanation that you, Joan, gave, that she's still the mother, she still loves both of them, despite everything that has happened.
We're losing you.
Yeah, the connection is bad today. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I can do. I'll try.
Hear you. We can hear you now.
So okay, so which part did you hear of the story?
That your father told your sister that when he was a student, there was a student in the class that offered an explanation.
Oh, okay. So then she went back to school, to Beis Yaakov. Where's our Beis Yaakov? Here's our Beis Yaakov. She went back the next day and said to the teacher, I have an explanation. And she gave that explanation. Now.
We lost you.
Lost you again.
Okay.
We lost you.
Oh, now? Do you hear me now?
We lost you.
Oh, this is terrible. Do you hear me now? No?
I don't think the computer wants us to know what the explanation is.
Yeah, no one's supposed to know.
Okay, so
Still a mystery. Okay.
yeah.
Now, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it goes in and out. Maybe you turn your head or something.
the teacher in Beis Yaakov didn't like at all the idea that my sister can come up with an explanation when Rashi couldn't, and chastised her. How dare
Oh,
you say you give an explanation when our great commentator Rashi couldn't? And my sister then, took it a little bit, was offended a little bit. She went back home, but my father calmed her down and said it's perfectly okay. And many commentators have tried to explain things that Rashi did not explain. But the twist of the story is that you know who that boy was that my father was speaking about? It was actually my father himself. And we know
I
that
was wondering.
Yeah. And during the Shiva for my father, his grade school teacher came and told us the story, and told us it was him. It was my father who offered that explanation in class when they were studying it.
Wow.
And my father was very
Wow.
modest, never bragged about any of his accomplishments. And this just shows you, right? He wanted to teach my sister an important point, but never wanted to brag. So he manufactured this fictitious boy in class.
Anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a
So
And
I
it,
think-
and Shamai, it also shows the importance of a teacher. So your father's teacher listened and took it in as a good explanation. Your sister's teacher, she might have thought it was a good explanation, but she shot your sister down. And if your father hadn't have told her that, hey, that was my explanation, your sister might never have raised her hand again.
Right. So that's a good point. And you know how I would, and I don't want to, bash the Beis Yaakov system or the teachers. What I would do today, right? I would go back to the teacher the following day and bring her all these explanations that we've seen. Let's say
Right.
the Derech, the Bartanura, the Netziv, and then maybe we could change our mind. Maybe, right? Who knows? But I think we can learn a lot of lessons from this verse. So
yes.
thank you all for joining us today.
Great class, Shamai.
Terrific.
Shamai, Yasha Koach. Yasha Koach.
Baruch
Thank
Tiyeh.
Thank you so much.
Yasha
Okay.
Koach.